All right, what's going on, everybody?
Yeah.
Welcome to another Sunday edition of Lambdas Who Roll Live, episode 26. I'm your host, Hernan, with my co-hosts, Fernando and Diego. What's going on, fellas? Good.
Going on? Good morning, guys.
And a special
Oh,
guest for today, Hoist Gracie Black Belt, Dr. Lamonte Tyler. What's going on, Professor?
Can you
Can you hear us?
think he's
Can you
off a
guys hear?
little bit? Yeah, I can hear you well.
yeah, I can hear you as well. Yeah.
Lamonte, can you hear us?
No, it says no audio.
We're gonna have to read your lips. He can't.
Uh-oh.
He can't see anything either.
I'm not sure.
Do we have a closed caption?
We got the camera to work, but now the audio.
You can't even see us, huh? Here we go.
Yeah.
A new setting.
Now it looks like we're spying on you in his office and stuff. we just
Like
we
Big
just
Brother.
set up a Big Brother camera.
Big Brother looking from above.
He doesn't even know he's on the interview right now.
All right. Well, we'll probably get him back in a few minutes, but all right, man, let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about how your training was this week. Let's do our weekly log, and we haven't done it in a little bit. So Diego, kick it off, man. How's it been?
Man, I haven't been training. I've been a little bit busy with
Real life.
Yeah, man, I've been a little bit busy with a few things on my end. But like I was just mentioning, hopefully in a couple of weeks, get to start a new schedule, add a few more classes, and
Nice.
just get back into the swing of things. So so it's a little bit off with that, but everything else is good. Um, you know, Looking forward to hopefully this week, man. Hopefully get to visit you guys as well, and let's see how it goes.
Nice, yeah. And
Fernando, what you got?
No training this week.
Oh man, we're Lambdas who don't roll.
Yeah.
We're Lambdas who don't roll.
Speak for yourself, man. I trained a little bit.
Nice.
Fernando
You gotta keep that fire going, man. That torch.
Seriously.
My
I
bad,
gotta
Fernando. Go ahead, brother.
That's
How
all
much
good.
you got,
No,
man?
like I was saying earlier, I feel like it's might be the change in the weather, change in season. It's just, maybe it's a combination of me being lazy as well. But, I just haven't
Everything.
been able to just, get on the mat, as much as I like to, or, at all in this case. I just kind of running through like a little bit of like some conflicts, like of schedule. So it's something that I've committed to, because I coach kids soccer. So towards the season ends in October, the end of October. So once that's there, then I won't have any excuse anymore. If I don't go, then it's on me. So,
Yeah.
hit
Yeah,
the
man. I mean, these changes do like affect,
Mhm.
the like you said, man. The whole even the weather, man. Like we were just talking about, man. It messes you up sometimes. Jay, what you got with training?
Yeah, I actually been pretty good, man. This week we had 2 sessions in the garage, really big sessions actually. We
Yeah, I
changed our
saw.
schedule. Yeah, we changed our schedule. I did a poll to see what days would be best because the Tuesday classes were dying out a little bit. Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays were the days, and we kicked off the new schedule last week, and we had some pretty good turnouts. It was crowded here, and then a little bit of ventilation in the garage, so things got a little steamy. So it was good. We had some good training. Saturday, I couldn't go train yesterday because we had a couple other things, but looking to pick up next week, starting off with Monday. So Fernando, man, if you can make the Friday classes, they're here.
Yeah. What time is that?
Well, we're starting them a little early. We had them planned for 5 o'clock, but I think that's too early because people were having a hard time getting there with traffic. So we might push it back to about 6.
Okay.
I think that was a lot better. And it seems like people telework from home on Fridays, so it's easier for them to kind of sign off and make it on their way here. So if that works out for you, man, we're gonna be here. Get some rolling.
Yeah. It's funny because I think Lamont is good to go, but
All right, cool.
I work out. It's the opposite for me. Like I go into the office on Friday, so maybe if I can, get in a little bit earlier so I can head out and then like by 4:30 and just start driving out there. So
cool. All right, so we got Lamont. I think he's working. So let me put him in. Hey, Lamont, can you hear us?
I can.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. We can hear you too. Awesome, man. How are you?
All is well. How about you?
Doing all right, man. Man, we're happy to have you on the show today. Looking forward to hearing your story about jujitsu. But so welcome to Lambdas Who Roll Live.
Thank you.
And I see that you're rocking your Greek letters, which is awesome. I
Yes,
think we should rock
nice,
ours
man.
I
too.
did that. I did that
Nice,
because I
man.
thought all of you would be doing the same thing today.
Man, we got you.
I
We
Uh,
thought
got you,
about
man.
it. I try to
That's cool
alternate.
though. But that's cool, man,
So,
because hopefully we can touch upon the organizations that it's not just one, and hopefully we can. I think we have some questions for you as far as the services that you provide that you do, man, and hopefully this can be a good so it's a nice plug there.
yeah.
okay.
So,
Yeah,
so
man.
uh, Lamar, we want to kick it off, and we want to just to kind of get to know you, and how you got into jujitsu. I mean, you're a Hoist Gracie black belt, probably the first in the Maryland area, right? Maryland, Virginia.
It's,
I think
it's
you and Jeremy, right?
it's funny to say that I am the first. I am the first Hoist Gracie purple belt.
Okay,
Even though Jeremy and I got promoted the same day, I was promoted first. I am
nice.
the first brown belt. We got promoted the same day, but I was still the first one. And then when we got our black belts together, he promoted me first. Uh,
Hmm.
I was the first of the six, and I think Jeremy was like the fifth. So to say
Hmm.
yeah, the first, and then when we became professors, I got mine first, and then got our first degrees first, and then I got my second degree. So
Nice.
yeah, I was like, I always was first. The crazy part is the purple and the brown. I got it at Jeremy School, and
Wow,
I wasn't even training with Jeremy at the time.
wow.
So yeah,
So we want to get to know, like, how did you get into jujitsu? I know you have a judo background. How did you actually start training in jujitsu?
and so it basically started where in high school I wrestled, and then in the army I wrestled for Fort Bragg. Tore my ACL in college playing football, and I never thought I would be able to train anymore. One day, a friend of mine was driving around because he wanted to try to find tractor trailers for his son. And he happened to run up to a Gracie school, which was in Hillsborough, North Carolina. And he came up to me and he was like, Lamont, I know you used to wrestle, but I found a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school where you could do that. I was like, what is that? I couldn't even say the word jiu-jitsu. I couldn't even remember, and yet alone, I didn't even know how to spell it. So he was like, I know you wrestle. It's almost like wrestling, but they do joint locks. He said, think about the UFC. And I was like, what is the UFC? So the first time I ever saw that was in 2003. And the Hoist and I were sitting together. But I was like, I don't know what jujitsu is. He said, okay, put it like this. You can go and try a class. And if you like it, then you can discuss signing up. So this was February 21st, 2000. I went in for my introductory class. And then before class was over, I looked at the instructor. I was like, I'm ready to sign because I hadn't wrestled in a long time. So I was like, I'm ready.
Nice. Yeah. So you
Well,
started jujitsu in North Carolina, right?
Correct.
Was that a Hoist Gracie affiliate?
yeah.
It was no actual Hoist Gracie affiliates in 2000. We were
Okay.
all part of the Gracie Academy.
Hmm.
From California.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then, so how did you get to meet Hoist, and how did that relationship start?
So in January 2001, I flew out to California because I wanted to train at the Gracie Academy,
Mm.
but I wanted to train with Kaiki. So I got out there and I was like, hey, I'm looking for Kaiki. And Hoist was like, Kaiki is in Michigan teaching. Teaching a seminar. And I said, okay. So I was about to leave. He was like, so you came out here to train? I said, I did. I wanted to train with Kaiki. He was like, you don't want to train with me? I said, I looked at Hoist and said, yeah, I guess I'll train with you. He was like, do you know who I am? I said, yeah, you the guy on the picture right there. So yeah, I know who you are. And people in North Carolina has made mention of your name. Then he says, okay, but you want to train? I said, sure. He said, all right, sign the waiver and then pay the drop-in fee. So I went out there, paid the drop-in fee. He was like, "How many classes you want to do?" I was like, "How many you have?" He said, "3." I said, "Okay." So then he taught all 3 classes, and then turned around and said, "Let's roll." And the good thing about it was, like, I really didn't know who Hoist was because I never watched UFC, and I wasn't starstruck over him because back then that was the height of him being famous
Mhm.
back in 2000, 2001. So I really didn't know who he was, didn't know his accolades back then. But then as time went on and I kept on training, I learned a lot more about him. So in 2003, when I watched my first UFC, we were sitting down in somebody's house, and then they actually made mention of him. And people like, Hoist, they making mention of your name. And it's crazy. Like those who have trained with me know I'm big on standing in base. People sitting in this guy's house, standing in base, sitting on the sofa, putting their hands back and swinging their legs to stand up in base. I was like, this is wild.
Wow.
But because of him, I've always stood in base because I knew that's what he wanted.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
So you got to what? So you got to watch a fight with Hoist Gracie.
My first,
That's
my
what you. Yeah,
first,
That's
that's
awesome.
and the
awesome, man.
crazy part is, I actually did MMA before even watching Hoist. My first MMA fight was against the former UFC fighter Brandon Veer.
Oh wow, you fought for Brandon. Nice.
That was my first fight, November 2001, and it was Brandon's first fight,
That's awesome,
Mm.
man.
That's that and that. What year was that again?
November 2001.
2001.
So mind you, I fought before watched the UFC. Then I
Oh
had my next fight before I watched UFC.
wow. And
Did your judo come in after jiu-jitsu or wow?
I started judo. I started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu February 21st, 2000. Judo January 4th, 2004.
Oh wow.
Mm,
oh, okay.
nice, man.
Did you feel that knowing jujitsu helped you progress in judo much easier?
So in judo, they go white, green, blue, brown, 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 black. So after 2 months of competing in judo, I went out and I looked at 3 divisions and I signed up for all 3 of them. One gold in the first two, and then silver in the third one. But the next month, I got double promoted to a blue belt. I skipped the green belt, and then 10 months of judo, I was a brown belt.
Hmm.
Uh,
And then by year 3 of judo, I had my first degree. Year 4, I had my second degree, which was completely unheard of unless you were competing in like the international tournaments and winning like crazy. But I had won state championships, nationals, went up, took third place in the U.S. Opens, went up to the American Canada Games, won gold in that a couple times. My jujitsu, I remember as a white belt, my first tournament, 2 months into doing judo, my first opponent was a brown belt. So I'm nervous because as a white belt and BJJ going against a brown belt, you're like, you're gonna get stomped on the mat. If they not gonna toy with you, if they do toy with you, you're being toyed with. But if they're not toying with you, you just got beat up really bad on the mat. So I looked at this judo brown belt and I'm afraid, thinking the same thing is going to happen. But I'm like, I'm a BJJ purple belt. So I said, all right, I'm going to just rely on my BJJ. Went out there, got the guy down, and I did a rear naked choke on him until his contacts popped out his eyes.
whoa.
And it's like, I've never choked anybody that hard in my life. But to see both of his contacts laying out on the mat in front of me, I was like,
That's
yeah, I'm at home now.
that's crazy.
Awesome, man. How old were you if you don't around that time?
I started BJJ at age 27, going on 28, and started
Nice.
judo at 31, going on 32.
That's awesome, man. That's
Nice.
awesome. I hear a lot of people when they, I mean, I guess now, training where, we're starting at this age, it seems to be an average age where, people start. And, obviously we would want to start a lot earlier, but that's what's up, man. I thought you started a lot earlier.
You will. So now that we are in the sport and we have been in as long as we have been in, we all sit back and be like, man, if I
Mm.
would have started at this age,
Oh, yeah.
you don't go in at 27 years old thinking about winning Abu Dhabi
Right.
because you don't know about Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
But if you are a teenager and you turn around like, I want to do Abu Dhabi,
Mm.
teenagers have aspirations by the time you're 27 to do your first Abu Dhabi. You definitely will think that high. But at
Yeah.
27 years old, first thing you think about, 3 years, I'll be in a master's division. That means I'm fighting older people. I won't be fighting these young people anymore. Or in 5 years, I'll be a master's one, master's two, and all that other.
Mm.
Then when you hit 40, you talk to your opponent just before you compete. Look, bro, we both 40 years old. I'm not trying to get injured. And you're both saying the same thing. I'm not trying to get injured.
Right. Right.
That's true.
Well, so you mentioned that you got so you're experiencing jujitsu through Hoist. You got to roll with him that one time. How was the roll? Like how was it rolling with Hoist Gracie?
He didn't attempt to submit me. What he did was said, I'm gonna do something to you that your instructor has told me that you do to people. I'm gonna show you how to use your weight. And Hoy side mounted me. Mind you, the 6'1", 180-pound person side mounted me made me feel like I had somebody over 300 pounds holding me down. And he did not try to tap me or anything. And I'm sitting there dying like I cannot sit here and tap to being side mounted. I never tapped. I never tapped. I held it. I couldn't breathe for nothing. When I was like, I'm gonna let this time run out. Once the time ran out, I was like, thank God. So then when I got back to North Carolina, people were like, who did you get to train with? I said, Hoist. They was like, oh, everybody went all crazy. I'm like, what's the big deal? It was just Hoist great. They were like, you don't know anything about him. No, I really don't. So I think that's what caused us to become really good friends to this
Nice.
day. Whereas I can pick up a phone and call him
That's what's
just
up.
because.
Yeah, it's interesting because every time he's come around, I get starstruck. Right, like I grew up with Hoist Gracie's Hoist Gracie picture on my wall, and I cut it out of a Black Belt magazine. I put it up on the wall, and believe it or not, growing up doing kung fu, we knew about Hoist, but we never knew about jujitsu. And I remember at 15 years old watching Hoist Gracie go through everybody in UFC one, never really thinking like I want to learn that. I was just thinking, wow, martial arts are cool. What I'm training, would be good, would be effective too. And I didn't really realize the power of just, and plus at the same time, during that time at, in 94, 95, Gracie's or jujitsu schools in New York, New Jersey were really unheard of. I think you had to really be in that martial arts scene to know that Henzo was there. Like you just didn't know about it. So when I came to Maryland, and I joined Capital. Obviously, it was a Hoist Gracie school, so that really, attracted me to join Capital. And then they decided to bring Hoist. I was a blue belt the first time I met him. I was, I thought like, wow, this is a dream come true. He walked in 6 foot one guy, and I'm not tall. I'm 5'4", and so he looked like a giant to me. And he went through the whole seminar. It was the most amazing experience, going through that. And the best part, and I still have a picture of it. I was going with Peter, and he was having us do this one drill with, we had to put our hand in our belt and
Yeah.
kind of working self-defense. And he talked to me, and all I could think about, I couldn't even hear what he was saying, the instruction. All I thought about is Hoist Gracie is talking to me right now. And my face was like, wow, I don't even know what he said. But yeah, I mean that experience of having him there, and I feel grateful because that was the first time. But I've gotten to train, with Hoist through his seminars probably like about 10 times, 10, almost a dozen times probably, which is, you know, um, not too many people can say that. I got my purple belt from Hoist. So that was a really cool experience. You know,
September
in
2012.
12.
I
Yeah,
know.
it was,
I
and
know.
that was pretty cool because I was a four stripe brown, and the way Hoist was doing things was, he'd come and he'd have everybody roll, and you just rolling, and I'm like, okay, Hoist is here, I gotta like destroy everybody. And that day, I was like going through everybody. I think the only one that gave me problems was, oh man, he left. I think he was in the military. I forgot his name, but he was just as good. Man, I can't remember his name. But I went through everybody, and then at the end, Hoist was like, "Okay, right, let's line up, let's take a picture." And I'm like, "Oh man," I went
Yeah.
through all of that, and I didn't get it. And then
He
I don't
came
know
up to
something.
me. He came up to me and was like,
Right.
"Who's ready?" I said, "Hernan."
Yeah. And so he came up to me and he tapped me on the shoulder and he's like, put a purple belt on. And I'm like, oh, and he caught me. I was like, oh, that's so great. And yeah, man, I still, as a matter of fact, I still have the belt on my wall. I had a picture of him and everything. And I was like, yeah, that day was very, very special to me because I can say that Hoist Gracie promoted me to purple belt, himself, So it was really
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah,
So
he
Lamar, let
tied
me
he tied it on you.
Yeah, yeah, it was awesome, man. That was
so
really
Lamar,
cool.
let me ask you, being that this is the right, so now we have, since we're talking about Horace Gracie, a legend, he has, a great history, and like and now jujitsu developed into what it is today,
Hmm.
where we know about Hoist Gracie. Right? For us, for example, we may appreciate him, his fighting, his style in a certain way, right? Because UFC number one, two, three. Now MMA, UFC has changed drastically, and now jiu-jitsu also in this whole sport and everything else. What is your take? Because I mean, a lot of Hoist Gracie, a lot of Gracie is the self-defense aspect, and
Right.
but I feel like a lot of people have lost that idea of like of that self-defense and the importance of it. What's your take? What's your experience, and your view on all that?
I this is a story. One of my blue belts now. He's a blue belt now. Trained with me for a month. Did his first jujitsu tournament as a white belt. But when I would take him from a Randallstown school to Capital, everybody would beat him. From the smallest white belt up to the largest white belt. Now this guy is 6'5", 250 pounds. Every white belt could have been 130 pound, 5'1". They were beating him like crazy. And he told me he wanted to do the tournament that was coming up, and he did his first tournament, and he used self defense to tap his first opponent, and then he became a real believer of the self defense. And then the guy who he beat came up to him and was like, "Tell me what it was that you just did to me, because I don't know. I have never seen it before." So it
That's
was
crazy.
just a self defense wrist lock that he did from the stand. And he tried two different self defense techniques, but the second one was more effective. I mean, it actually worked. The first one, I guess he didn't apply it correctly, or the other guy defended correctly. So then after that, he lost his next two matches, but he was on cloud nine because he wanted he became a believer of the self defense at that
Nice.
point.
Hmm.
2 weeks ago, I took, oh, yeah, 2 weeks ago, I took 11 students to a tournament here in Maryland. And there were a total of 29 teams there at the tournament. And my team, even though it was 11 of us, we were one of the smallest teams at the tournament. In my head, I said, with 11 people, we don't have enough people to take a first place team trophy. I already knew that. I didn't care how many times we won gold. We didn't have enough to outdo the team that had like
The
30
numbers.
students. So I said, I know for a fact that we'll get at least third place if every one of my team students won. So we took third place out of 29 teams.
Nice.
And the crazy part is lost we lost second place by 6 points.
Wow.
My students went out there and believed in the self defense aspect. So I believe in the self defense because it has been effective for my students. Was I always a self defense guy? No. So the first 12 years of jujitsu, I was sport. That year that Hoyes came up to me and said, "Know your self-defense, meet me in Miami." It was May 2012. See me in Miami. I grabbed Grandmaster Elio Gracie's book and I came to class every day and I taught about 20 self-defense techniques every day. No way you're gonna remember 20 moves, but I kept on drilling them
Sure.
20 moves every day.
Yeah.
And it was, and the crazy thing was, it was not for the class. It was for me to learn. Even though Hernan was part of that,
Oh yeah, I remember.
that drilling them 20 moves every class I came in. So it was for me to try to learn as quickly as possible and hoping that the students would walk away with at least 2 to 3 of the self-defense techniques.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a strong believer in it. And even though I wasn't practicing it, but I remember I had been training for 5 years and this guy had been training for 7 years, and I was a little bit nervous when I had to compete against him. But in 10 seconds, I actually defeated him with a shoulder grab defense. And then I recently had a student sign up with me at the he signed up with me at the beginning of the year. He continued to call me up. He was calling me like crazy. And I'm like, I started ignoring his call because you can't call me every day for almost a month talking about I want to train with you, because to me I didn't think he was serious.
Mm.
Then he started emailing me. And then he eventually showed up and he
Mhm.
said the reason why I want to come here because I got robbed at an ATM machine. And when the guy was robbing me, I dropped down and I did the X guard and it didn't work.
No way.
So the story gets better. The story gets better about him being robbed at the ATM. And I asked him, how is it that you get robbed and the person never had a weapon? You got beat up at an ATM and your money was taken. So you did not know how to defend yourself.
Mm,
I
that's
said,
crazy.
now. So then he actually come in and he tried to teach X guard to some of the students. And I look at him like, did it work for you at the ATM? Don't ever teach that in my school. If it never worked for you at the ATM, don't try it now.
Oh man, I was gonna actually ask you for permission to come teach X Guard.
Were you really?
Yeah, man. Let me come and teach some stuff.
I actually, if you want to come in and teach it, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't have a problem with it. Simply because I'm not going to say that X guard won't work, but maybe the instructor did not know how to properly teach it
Mm,
to be effective. So I've seen people do X guard, seen them use it in tournaments. Me, I've never ever been a person who has done anything but the basics. Except when you have seen me teaching some of the capital seminars, I will go try to teach cool techniques, stuff I know that's probably not gonna work on the street or work in the tournament, but I'll still show it. Like the one where you saw me do the inverted triangle.
oh
When
yeah,
you were
yeah.
like, hold on, I didn't think you could do stuff like that.
I remember. I remember you did that off the lasso, and you
Yeah.
just inverted, and then you did the ninja roll to the triangle. And I'm like, I never thought that you could invert. I was like,
He
okay,
still got to show he got it, you know?
still got it.
Got to
It
show he
wasn't
still
even
got
that.
it,
It
man.
wasn't even that because I never ever taught stuff like that. It's just that I knew how to do it. And then what Hernan thing was a big guy doing something like that. I never thought
Yes,
you could do. He
never.
didn't want to. He didn't want to say as a big guy. I didn't think you'd do. But that's what he meant. I never thought you could do something like that.
It's
But I
crazy.
did have one person at the seminar like, hold on, big people not supposed to be able to do stuff like that.
But that's interesting
I th-
because I think your jiu-jitsu is pretty versatile. I remember you really focused on the basics, and so in 2012, that's when you were getting ready to test.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense now because I remember it was all self-defense. But you know what? I'm grateful for it because even though now I kind of blend the way I teach with more like sports and then some self-defense, and I always distinguish between one or the other. I tell my students, hey, this is going to work in the street, this doesn't. So if you're thinking about self-defense, don't do this. But But I remember, it's funny because a student the other day, and we talked about this on the show, was talking about self defense and how his one of his friends or one of the person, some person that he knew, in got robbed in Baltimore. Got jumped in Baltimore, and he's like, "Well, what would you do in this case?" So I was like, so I told my students, "Okay, attack me, just randomly attack, but go ham, like go hard." And he did, and obviously you don't know where things are coming, and all of a sudden, naturally, your instincts kick in, and your Gracie self defense jujitsu kicked in. And I was like, wow, everything that was taught during that time has been drilled so much that it automatically comes out now. You don't have to think. It's like it's just there. And it's so fundamental, it's so basic that anybody with any, with any level of skill, body shape or anything like that, age can learn it and be effective at it. So I really value self-defense.
You know, I started off with a self defense program, went into a more of a sport. And I have to say, man, like when I would go visit my brother and go to you guys at Capitol, and you guys have those seminars, and man, you guys going over, I was a purple belt, and going over the self defense techniques and not understanding it as a purple belt, you guys opened up my eyes, man. Like, so when I came back, I was like, man, like there has to be a better balance. Not that I didn't know too much of the self defense, but the balance wasn't there. So I really appreciate it, man, because I think it's very, very important. And I'm glad that you mentioned the stories and the things that you said, because I feel like people, need to understand that there is there is a difference, there is an importance for this, and in the jiu-jitsu journey should be learned, shouldn't be ignored. Just think about sport or even just self-defense for that matter, right? Like I think people should also understand that speed, that aspect of competition, or just for themselves, or but yeah, man, it's I remember one time, man, I wrote what was on you guys were on the second floor of the dance
Yeah, yeah,
studio,
yeah,
or
yeah.
right?
And
Man, I
roller.
rode with, yeah, I think you were one of the first people that I rode with, from like you're much heavier and bigger than I am, and I'm like, man, at least I can move around and all that, and you caught me in a what is it,
The
a
banana
banana
split.
split, bro. I was like, bro, I'm
Everybody.
like, yo, really?
Everybody.
I'm like, well, how am I gonna move, bro? I'm like, I can't move. And
And you
you kept on like slowly like stretching me out. I'm like, yo, this is I haven't done a split since kung fu days, and bro, I was
anytime,
Yeah,
if you roll with Lamont for the first time,
bro.
you're
banana
gonna get
split.
caught in a banana split.
Yeah,
There's
I
no way
came, I
around
was
it.
like, yeah, I'm good. I think I was a blue, or I don't know. I was like, yeah, I'm good, man. Come from New Jersey. Bro, this guy got me in my feet was touching my foot was touching my ear. I was like, that was cool, man. It's a good experience, man. And like honestly, like going back to, you guys, no joke, man. Training with my brother and going to those seminars and seeing like that importance. Even the stand up and basement, I tell my brother, man, like you know, and it's so fundamental, but it's amazing how important and how useful it can be, even in like just normal like settings, man. Now when I just get up from watching TV, it's just getting up the same way, or
mhm.
but it's so useful, right? Just the movement, the technique, the balance. You get a little bit of a workout while you're standing up, pushing up, like so many different things. But yeah, much appreciated, bro.
Right. So hopefully Hoist is not listening to this, but I hated self defense. And every time he came and did a seminar, I hated the self defense. I hated it. Even when he told me know my self defense, see him, I didn't really. I drilled it for so many months. I was like, I really don't like it. Even I got my black belt, and then I was teaching a little bit of sport and still teaching some self defense, and I was hating it. And then one day I was like, I have to make self defense exciting for me to like it the way that the Gracie's designed it to be. So I said, I have to put realism in the self defense. If you teach it slowly, it's boring. If it's just like a sucker punch, throw the sucker punch fast. Let me really do the defense and then complete it. So once you throw the sucker punch, I complete the defense. I'm like, okay, now this is fun. If you do a simple chest push, okay, I go slow, I defend the chest push. But you go fast and it really happened, or go at me with a knife and I'm really defending. I mean, I have control where I'm not going to hurt a person like your joints. Or I could hurt you if I wanted to, but I have enough control in class where I can defend it a lot quicker. Then it's a lot more fun. So there have been times where I think Hernan's probably been in some of the classes where I call it bar fight. Bar
Oh yeah.
fight where you got two people on one. And now here you gotta start thinking about the different defense because the one person with the gloves, you gotta defend the two people off of you who don't have gloves. They can't strike, but the ones with gloves can strike. So now the two people are thinking about how they're gonna defend this guy who's striking, and the one person thinking about how they're gonna defend these two people who's trying to grab them, maybe
So
shoulder grab.
two people have gloves and one person is doing.
No, two people don't have gloves. The one with the gloves. So I tell them look at it like this: one person is being attacked by two people in a bar, or you got one drunk person attacking two people in the bar. The roles can be reversed, but this is how I want you to look at it.
Mhm.
Another self-defense thing that I did for the class, whereas people did not realize we were using stick defense. I bought pillows, and we had a pillow fight in Tacoma. And no one realized that you were using the stick defense the entire time to do the pillow fight. But when I pulled out the stick before the pillows, they struggled on a stick defense. But when I pulled out the pillows and I started throwing, we were just having pillow fights like a bunch of adults looking like you're breaking the monotony of training and you up
Yep.
there swinging pillows and you up there defending everything. Oh, now we all having fun. But then what was brought to everyone's attention, think about how many times you shot your arm up to defend that pillow. How many times you jump back to defend from being hit and then rushing the person. It was like you didn't even know that you were using the stick defense the whole time that pillow was being swung at you.
Mhm.
So it becomes fun when you make it real.
Oh yeah. No, I can attest to that. It's funny we talked about because this month for me is my self defense month. I kind of change the themes as I go along. This month we're focusing on self defense, and because the garage is kind of small, we're focusing on the punch block series. Managing the distance from while you're back and somebody's punching. So I told these guys, all right, let's add a little bit of juice into it. Open your hands and just start go wailing out. So if you're in his guard, hit his ribs with palm strikes. If you can hit his face, go ahead and do it. And I said, but in enough with enough power that he's going to react. He's going to have to react. The minute you did that, number one, they start huffing and puffing. So now you're like they're actually working harder. And the other thing is now the person on the back who's actually doing the self defense can see that where they have to position their hands because if not, they're going to get caught with a smack in the face or in the ribs or anything. So I think once you add that realism to it, it definitely steps things up a notch. And I know we did it because I know when we were training with Mo. By the time we were brown belts, we've done it so many times. We were like, okay, here we go again. So we were like, Mo, just try to knock me out, man. Just go. And he would go hard, and boom, you just hit, and it conditioned you to kind of deal with the speed and the intensity, the strength behind the punch, rather than it just being just like just almost like a flow drill type of thing. Or so the intensity that definitely picked up things. It makes it really exciting to train self defense.
So the one thing I always tell people in self-defense anyway, you have to relax. You have to relax, especially if you're being attacked, because if you don't learn to relax, you forget all your
Technique.
techniques.
Mm.
So a lot of times people always talk about like, oh, go for the choke on Lamar. No, Lamar don't have a neck. Lamar can't be choked. But
It's not
as you
yet.
see, my neck is not that big. It's the fact that if you put a choke on me, I let my body go limp and I'll look at you. And most of the time people like go because they like, all right, he must be asleep. When I sleep, I go to a real relaxed state. I go to a really relaxed state at that point because now I'm ready to start defending your choke. But the sudden movements and the panicking, that's where you lose. And that's the thing with the self defense. You got to learn to keep your head because if you don't keep your head, nothing works. Whether you're doing sport or self defense, if you don't keep your head, it doesn't work. That's why I always tell people relax, be patient, relax. Like if you ever roll with me, most people be like, "Oh, Lamar be toying with me. Lamar don't do. I don't really. He just toys with me. It's not that I'm toying with you. I try to be relaxed as possible because you're gonna make a mistake, and then I'm gonna capitalize on it.
Sometimes that creepy relax because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll have a choke on you, and I'm looking and it's hard, and I know anybody else that I would get that on would probably tap, and you're just looking at me with this smile on your face, and I don't even know if you're smiling because you're asleep or just you're enjoying the moment. I don't know, and I'm like, man, you know what? I'm just gonna let go because I kind of feel something bad is about to happen, and
Like
with that creepy smile,
Mhm.
his eyes are telling you to let go, let go,
yeah,
Actually, they
let
don't.
go.
My eyes be just like this,
yeah.
and then I'll do you just like that.
Yep. And then
Yo,
the banana split.
And then you put you in a banana
and then
split.
before you know it, you're eating your foot. Lamont, I remember one time, I don't know if you were playing or joking, man. Where you in your competitions, you go and you like whisper,
I do.
you be whisper, yeah,
I
all
do
I
right,
that.
like
I do that.
cookies. I
I,
like
yeah,
I,
cookies.
you,
I'll get like I will go to tournaments. I'll get on the. I'll go weigh in where I would used to go to like Burger King and grab a breakfast sandwich, two of them, and I'll get on a scale and weigh in and bite my sandwiches, and then I would do crazy junk. Like I remember somebody saw me one day at a tournament, and they looked at me like this because I would walk out there and then tapping my shoulder, tapping my legs, or then I'll stand there with my hands like this and look at you like. I think if you see a few YouTube clips, you'll see me out there like this. One guy looked at me and said, "What are you trying to do? Hypnotize me?" No, no. And then I'll get close to you and then hug you, hold you tight, and be like, "Let me win. Just let me submit you."
My wife is
Then be
looking.
like
My
one
wife.
time, one time I wore this mouthpiece looked like rotten teeth. And then I made it look like my teeth were falling out my mouth and hurry and pushed them back in and then kept on rolling. And one guy turned around and looked at his coach, was like, his teeth, his teeth. His coach was like, pay him some attention. By that time, I already threw him.
That's funny,
So
man.
is it like mental warfare that you use these like techniques to like mess
No,
with your opponents?
no, no. I used to do stand up comedy.
Really? Oh wow,
I
wow.
used to do stand up comedy. So I try to bring the comedian out in tournaments.
that's what's up.
I actually try not to, well, I do bring it out in class, but I feed off of people. If you say something, I will feed off of you. I'm not even gonna talk about this situation. I just remember somebody said something and Hernan put his head down, said no. And once they said something and I reacted to what the person said, Hernan got up and chased the guy out the school. Not chased him out, but he chased behind him at the end of class and apologized for me.
I had to apologize on the bit. I was like, we're trying to get students. We were at Capital. The early years of Tacoma Park, we had maybe
At the
like
second location.
the second location. We still had only like 10 to 15 people, and on an average class was maybe 5 to 8. So we wanted more students. So this guy walks in and he's like, I want to try it out. He's done jujitsu some other, and Lamont says something that really bothered the guy, but he
No,
laughed it off. He laughed it
no.
off, but
But he actually initiated that because I asked, what did he do for a living? He said, sign. And I
uh,
was like, did you learn that in college? He said, no, both my parents are deaf. I said, okay. And I just did like this. He said, yes, I only heard my mother once while we went camping. I was like,
Oh, he set himself up.
oh,
But
Hernan and everybody else did like this. No,
no,
no.
don't say that.
So I responded. I responded and I was like, ah. But that was the comedian side of me. And I was like,
Now that I know that you were a comedian, that makes sense.
yeah,
yeah,
that's a straight
Everything,
alley.
my years
because
training under you makes sense now.
yeah, because a lot of times like somebody say something, I'm cracking jokes, or
All the time.
everyone got a nickname. Everyone gets a nickname. And if you don't get a nickname, it's because you didn't do something immediately to help me give you a nickname, but everyone got a nickname.
Dang, man. So I got to step
That's
my
what's up.
game up then because I got no
Me,
nickname.
man, me and Mo were like the Mexicans we're like,
Wait,
yeah,
wait, wait.
we have Mexicans
Asians,
here.
Asians would come in, and I would call them Mexicans too.
Mexicans. Oh my goodness. We were like, yeah, that's funny because they would come in and be like, yeah, you can. We have other Mexican students here, and like Hernan, Mo. We're like, I'm not Mexican, man. Like we just accepted that at the time. We're like, yeah, come on, come on. That's
If,
I'm
if
here.
it
Here,
was,
here. I'm in capital. I'm Mexican.
even no, I even called it. I say some of the black people were Mexican too.
yeah. Everybody was Mexican.
So
Everybody.
right now we have two girls who are part Korean and um, Argentina. They have Korean, have Argentina, and I call them Chinese all day long. They the Chinese kids. And the funny thing is, the father laughs about it too because, and then he started joking about him being Chinese. One day, I said it in front of one of their aunts, and she was like, "We're definitely not Chinese," because the aunt is full-blooded Korean. We all went out to eat, and this was recent. I say something about the Chinese. She was like, "We're definitely not Chinese."
That's
Wow.
Like,
crazy. But now it all makes sense. It all makes sense now.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Wow. So, coach, as a
actually,
man,
before you say that,
yeah.
so there are some people who signed up with Capital after looking at my video. One of my stand-up videos at my old school that I started in Charlottesville, Virginia. There were no, it was Capital. There were people who researched me and found videos of me doing stand-up, and they came to Capital just to sign up because they wanted to sign up with this comedian.
That's what's up, man. I'm gonna look you up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for real.
Was
Right
that
now,
was that was that something you were like into before, like, or while you were? Or there was just something like on the side, being that you.
so I will go to comedy shows, and I used to say, I know I can make people laugh. I know I want to do this. And when I moved back to Baltimore in 2008, a guy who I went to high school with, who I played football with, football, wrestle, and lacrosse with, I was like, man, I heard you a comedian. I went, and he was like, come on out to my show. I went out to his show, and I was like, this guy is funny. I said, man, I've always wanted to do it. He said, I'll get you in the show. I'll get you in the show. I hope you're funny. It was, I don't know how many people was there, but he was like, Lamont, since it's your first time doing it, I want you to go seventh so that you have enough people in front of you. You get to see everybody how it's done. So you go over to talk to the promoter about becoming seventh. I said, okay. I walked over to the promoter and said, I would like to be second.
Man.
And what makes it even worse, it was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's hard to make people laugh
Right after
4
work.
o'clock in the afternoon, and it's Baltimore Ravens game going on, and there was only about 30 people in attendance. So I'm like, now it's no really real big crowd.
Mhm.
But the place where I did my first stand up is the place where a lot of Baltimore comedians got their start,
Oh,
which
nice.
is the Baltimore Comedy Factory.
That's cool.
Nice.
So I got out there, was second, and at first I was nervous because the first person was like a 7 year veteran, and he didn't hardly get any laughs. I went out there and I did my routine, and then I joked the first comedian bad, and they were just tripping hard off of it because I'm like, yeah, he got no laughs. And then at the end, before I got off stage, I'm like, at least I got more laughs than the first guy. Then, mind you, this guy was on Comic View, BET.
Wow.
He was on Comic Central. This guy used to do the comedy on the radio for Baltimore and all. And I'm like, I just outdid a veteran, and I killed it.
Nice. That's
That's what's
But
up.
my sister used to be my first audience, and I would go to her, and I'm like, if my sister would laugh at me, then I know it's gonna be funny for anyone else because my sister was hard. So if she didn't like something, don't put it in the show. That's how she would be. Don't put it in the show. Don't use that. But if I every time I would keep her laughing, and then when my sister passed away, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing comedy.
Hmm.
And then these two comedians who was on Comic Central in Comic View. They were like, "I want you to come on my show. You need to come out." I said, "You know what? Fine." So I did my last show with Coco Brown. Coco Brown happened to be a famous comedian who actually was in movies and stuff like that. And one movie I can think about is called Drew Hill. So Coco Brown was in Drew Hill. So I said, you know what? I gotta go out here and kill it since Coco Brown is here. I went out there and I did a strip routine. And I told her my stripper name was Coco Brown. And because she was in the back waiting to come out, every people tripped off of that because I called myself the famous comedian who's coming out. Kind of killed it. I killed it, and then that was my last show.
Nice. What year
That's
was
cool,
that?
man.
That was actually in 2010. So I did like
Not 2 years.
I did about 9 shows in the 2 years.
That's
Did about
awesome, man.
9 shows.
Man, you got a
That's
bunch of
what's up.
faces, man. Because what some people
That's
don't
history.
know too, or maybe they do, um, you also have multiple degrees, right?
Nine.
Nine academic degrees. We're not talking about martial arts black belt
Yeah,
degrees.
nine.
Academic degrees, including um, your doctorate, which you recently got, and your latest one was your MBA, right? And or
No,
your psychology,
bachelor's. A
bachelor's
bachelor's.
in psychology, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy,
I
man.
finished the
How do you,
bachelor's May 8th of this year.
wow,
Wow.
how do
That's
you
what's up, man.
how did you manage that? I mean, that's incredible to like have nine academic degrees, including just a doctor. I mean, I did the doctorate, and it was pretty intense. I remember when I first started, I hit you up, and you were one of the reasons I was like, hey, if Lamont can do it, I know that I'm going to be able to do it too, because you know we have the same work ethic. I got this because I was nervous to do it. And I remember I met with you, and you had told me about it. You gave me some advice, about considering the program and maybe considering other things. But I was like, no, I'm just gonna stick with it. I already started, and it was hard. And I was like, nah, but how did he end up? And you were doing, I think you did your MBA while you were doing your doctorate
Yeah, I
too, right?
did. I did at a
I have
different
no
school.
idea how. You,
At a
I don't
different
know.
school.
That is crazy.
So my associates, I tell people this. I started my associates May 30th, 1995. May 30th, 1996. I graduated with my associates. So 1 year total.
Wow,
Graduated with my associate. The next year, I finished my bachelor's degree. But before walking across stage, I had already had 21 credits of grad classes. I already did 21 credits. So in 2 years' time, I had almost finished. I was almost finished from getting my master's in 2 years of total school. But then, like, I did three more classes, and I was two classes away from graduating. And then they didn't say what I wanted to hear prior to me graduating. So I transferred schools and started a brand new program, and then turned around and got three master's degrees. And those three masters, my first five degrees came 3 weeks short of 6 years total school.
that's crazy.
So then 13 years later, my wife was working on her master's in nursing, and she asked me, what should she do? I said, I've been in IT, so do informatics. And we could probably do a business together where you're doing informatics and I'm doing my IT. So I looked at her school to see what her school had to offer. And they had a doctorate in IT. And I'm looking at all the other doctorates, but it didn't say dissertation. So I thought the doctorate of IT program did not have a dissertation. I'm like, shoot, I'm jumping into this because I didn't want to write. My first class, I got a C out of it. I was like, oh Lord, this the rest of the school is going to be like this. So 2 years into the program, well, not even 2 years, a year and a half into the program, I went up to my advisor, like, my wife is about to graduate. I want to walk across stage with her. What could I do to be able to walk across stage? I know I'm not going to finish my doctorate in right now. I said, take these classes right here, and you'll be able to walk with a master's in IT at the same time. So I took those classes while still working on my doctorate. And then my wife and I walked across stage together.
Nice.
But the NBA has always been on my bucket list, so I tried out for Western Governors University. Didn't like how the platform was, so I dropped out of Western Governors and then signed up with Strayer. And the advisors kept on talking about we're going to accept this many classes, but they would not accept the extra two classes. So I dropped Strayer and signed up for Columbia Southern University for the MBA. And I was in the middle of taking classes at Strayer. Had not finished the class yet. Started Columbia Southern and was still at Walden. So the last month of being at Strayer, well, last 2 weeks of being at Strayer, I was at total three colleges. And the only reason why I didn't drop Strayer because I'm like, I've never ever quit something I already started. So I'm like, I already got an A in this class, so I'm gonna just finish it out. That class didn't even transfer over.
Wow.
So then I did the doctorate in 2018. Finished that in 3 years, 8 months. If I would have started the doctorate program less than 10 years prior to finishing my last master's, some classes would have transferred over, but my program didn't start until 12 years after I finished my last master's. So that then I got the MBA. And then my daughter was about to graduate from my first alma mater with her bachelor's in psychology. Reached out to the school because I had already taken a lot of classes leading up towards psychology, found out what I needed to take. And that's the one thing I beat myself up on. Like, man, I could have graduated with a master's degree in psychology, got licensed
Mm,
versus a bachelor's. But I say, you know what? I'm gonna walk across stage with my daughter.
Nice.
that's that.
And it's crazy that like the fall semester 2020, I took six classes, worked full time job, ran my school here in Randallstown, was still teaching over at
Capital.
took Capital, as well as I'm active with Omega Psi Phi. I'm an active Mason. Very active in both Masons and Omega Psi Phi. And then I'm a freelance photographer.
Yep.
So to take six classes before a real full time undergrad, it was hard. But mind you, I made the president's list or the chancellor's list because of maintaining straight A's.
What's up, man?
So
Super impressive.
What's
how
up,
do
man?
you find that time, that balance? Because you did stand up comedy. You're a scholar. You also, for people that know you, you also give back to the community in Baltimore. You own your own academy, and then also you find time to take, to teach at Capital and Tacoma Park, in addition to be a husband and a father. Like, how, as somebody, who struggles, or other students that try to struggle to find that balance of like training, work life balance, like, how do you do it, and what is your advice to those students who are struggling, and to try to maintain that balance?
So the one thing we can't really talk about being a father because all the kids are grown.
Yeah.
All the kids are grown. So that balancing grown kids who don't live in the house is not part of the equation
Okay.
anymore. So if they were part of the equation, then it would probably be a little more difficult to be able to do all of that. Now the kids are always an equation. Kids are going to be your kids regardless. They always part of the equation. But as far as trying to balance that, you don't have to worry about balancing it when everyone is already out the house, either in college, in trade school, or in the military. So the one thing I said to my wife when we first started dating, I live a busy life. I live a real busy life. I said, now, and if you can't get frustrated because I'm informing you now. I travel a lot. To date me, you have to have a passport because when I say I'm ready to fly out to a different country, you got to be ready. If you're not ready, just know I want to go to the country. I'm going. So this is a new life you're about to go into, and I want you to take that road with me. But you gotta be willing to do it. And then sometimes if she know I'm going overseas to teach jujitsu, like South Africa or the Ukraine, she was like, "No, that's your thing. I don't want to be bored. I don't want to be sitting up in the room while you teaching. So you going over those countries, you have fun." And I went to multiple countries without her. So it was that understanding that we had in the beginning, that communication, and that's what you have to have. You have to be able to communicate in the beginning, lay out everything. The fact that she understands that I stay busy and I'm taking on additional roles, and she know there are things that I want in life, so she's very supportive of the things that I want in life. And then normally, if I want something different, I explain to her what I want to do, and she's like, "I'll support that. I support it." So that's the major thing, to have a support system.
Mhm.
You have to have that support system, and that's what I have in my wife. So anything now, and how I make up for that is by spoiling her. Because if my wife says I want blue water, I take her overseas. Her birthday comes around, I take her overseas. My birthday come around, I take her overseas. She turns around and says, "I'm bored. I need to do something." We travel. We travel. We leave. My wife told me last year I want a new house. Let's get one built. I said, you know what? When my student loans are paid off, I'll do that. March 3rd this year, my student loans were paid off. All
That's what's up.
234,000 paid off. And I'm like, when that comes off my credit report, then we can go look for a house." I looked at my credit report like 3 weeks later. I said, "All right, it's no longer on the
So,
report. Time to go." She said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to this new development. I already set up an appointment. We get there. Don't worry about telling them what specifications you want for the house. I came out here in February and I already gave all the specifications. I had a feeling you would come out here because it's one of them things. You might say no today, but I already know you're going to do it anyway. So that's why I say I give her what you want." Yeah, I mean, but as far as the balance is concerned, you have to know you how much you can take on, because if you try to overdo more than what you can take on, there's something called stress, and stress kills. So if my stress level would not have allowed me to take on 6 classes in the fall semester of last year, then I would have dropped. But I felt like I'm composed enough to be able to deal with that. And how how am I able to deal with stress? Whereas a lot of people don't ever think I get mad. I deal with stress through comedy.
mm,
Mm.
So you have to find that vice that you might have that you can gauge your life with. And comedy is it. And people are like, yeah, I hit a, and like those in martial arts doing Muay Thai, I'm hitting a heavy bag to bring out stress. I go smoke cigarettes, go smoke weed because I'm stressed, smoke cigars because I'm stressed. No, that's an excuse. That's an excuse. Like when you turn around and use the additives of your life that you don't really need. You don't need that to feel good, because once once you stop doing that stuff, you come off of that high. Now you still feel the same way you felt before you did anything. So you just got to find that actual vice in your life to be able to deal with the other instances. Now, one of the major vices in my life that helps me deal with stress is when I go out, not just feed the homeless, but go out, clothe the homeless, provide them with blankets around the wintertime. And what a lot of people don't know is I was against doing this stuff for homeless people. I was completely against it. And it was not the fraternity that changed me. It was 2002. I was driving and I've always seen this panhandler outside, always looking dirty, always having a sign up, always wanting money. And I used to be like, just get a job. If you're really hungry, you will go to McDonald's parking lot and go in the dumpster, and everybody don't always finish their food. So you're not really that hungry because you're not going to the trash can. Then one day I saw her. and she had on all white, and she was clean, and she had a sign, need food, need money, need this. And I went up to her and I was like, how is it that you have on clean clothes? She said, just because I have on clean clothes don't mean I'm not homeless. I have friends. And I'm thinking, like, why the friends not putting her up? It's not actual friends that she know. It's people like me. It's people like me that you call your friend. Whereas I was about to move from Charlottesville to Virginia, and I grabbed a whole bunch of clothes to donate. And I donated them to the homeless that day. And then I said, I'm that friend that that lady is talking about. I'm that friend. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I feel bad that I have pushed them to the side and never made a difference in their life. So when I moved to Virginia, I used to always get my clothes together, always get my clothes together. But financially, I could not pay for food like I do now. Moved to Ohio, got clothes together. Then when I moved back into this area, because I'm originally from Baltimore, when I moved, I left in '90, but when I moved back in 2008, got a job working for Fox News, and the money was coming like crazy. And then every time I would get off the MARC train or drive to work, and I see the homeless person out in front of my job, and I'd be like, "Do me a favor, walk with me." Walk over to the restaurant and like look at the menu. This is before I would go into work. Sometimes I didn't even care if I would be late. Look at the menu. Look at see what you want. Pick whatever you want off the menu, and then they would start ordering food. One time, the manager was like, "They can't be in here. They gotta get out." I was like, "Why? They're a paying customer. Why? And they're not even causing trouble." Yeah, but they hang out on the front. Okay, they're paying customer. Don't put this person out. And they were like, "Okay." So then that person stayed. They said, "But they can't eat. Sit down and eat." Why? You don't have signs that say homeless people can't sit down and eat. But I say, you know what? To save trouble, just come outside, finish your food. So they went outside. I sat down with them, sat down and ate with that person. And and then I started bringing more and more people. One homeless guy literally was digging through the trash can, and I was like, "Stop, walk with me." It got to the point I started taking so many people to this one restaurant. And they were like, anytime he walks in, his food is free. Even if he don't walk in with anyone, his food is free. And then
That's
I
what's up.
then I started telling people at the job, please bring me clothes that you're not gonna wear. Use clothes. I want books. Give me books that you're not gonna read anymore. So I started collecting books. I would come to work and under my desk be 42-gallon bags of clothes that people don't want, blankets, everything. Then it really got me when a homeless guy was like, "I knew you were coming back." He said, "Next time you come out here, I need a size 12 boot." I said, "Good thing is I wear 12 boots." Took off my boots and gave them to him.
Uh,
And I'm at work still, and I walked back up to my desk in my socks because I always kept running shoes at my desk because I always went to the fitness center and ran. So I walked back up to my desk without shoes on, looking like I could have been a homeless person, and I did not care who did not see me without shoes on. Saw a guy down in DC without a coat on. And it was cold. It was freezing that day, and I took off. It was my favorite coat, even though it had 49ers on it, who's not my favorite football team, but it had 49ers on it. One of my favorite coats, though. Took it off, gave it to him, and I said, "Don't worry about me. I can afford to buy another coat." And I hurried and went to a Walmart that they just built in DC and bought me a coat. And it was not like my favorite coat because it wasn't comfortable. Then I just started doing more and more stuff like that. And then around the Founders Day of Omega Psi, our frat brothers used to always be like, "Oh, we need to get together more often." So we would get together every third Tuesday of the month. And I was like, why are we sitting down and eating all the time when there are a bunch of homeless people hanging out around Union Station? Let's do what it is that we do. So some of them like, I can't stick around, but here's $5. Here's $5. So we put together, buy a bunch of chicken, sit outside and feed the homeless outside of Union Station. Then I started doing it a lot up in Baltimore. Every holiday, every single holiday, except Columbus Day, because I always forget it's a holiday. Like tomorrow's Columbus Day, and I'm not even doing it. But normally every holiday, I'm out feeding the homeless. Whenever I travel overseas, like in New Zealand, my eyes lit up when I saw a whole bunch of homeless people, and I pulled over my rental car and I was like, "Stay here." Ran across the street to Pizza Hut, bought a bunch of pizzas, sat down with the homeless people, and ate our pizza. And one guy was like, "Can I have a hug?" I was like, "That I'm not gonna do." I like homeless people, but his hands were jet black. I'm like, "I'm not gonna hug you." I realized how dirty you are. I'm not gonna do that. So we sat down, we ate. They spoke English. And then one thing I tell people, sit down and talk to a homeless person, learn their story. Because not everybody homeless because they want to be. Learn their story. Went to Rome, and right there at the Vatican are homeless people.
Wow.
So you can't really say wow, because think about it. We live in Maryland. Go to the Capitol. Go to the Capitol where the governor is. A lot of homeless people outside the governor's mansion. Go to the White House. Why they got the gate up and the homeless people outside the lawn where the president is. So if you go overseas, it's the exact same thing, because in the Ukraine, I didn't realize my room was down like less than a block from the equivalent of the White House in the Ukraine. That's where all the homeless people were. Difference between their White House and ours, you could walk up, sit on the steps and everything. So in Ukraine, I'm feeding the homeless. This guy from Sweden, who happens to be a Mason as well, come up to me. He was like, "I would like to help out." And then what made things easier, both of us were Masons. So it was like, okay, Masons are out here doing what the Masons supposed to be doing in the Ukraine. This is not our country, but we're doing it. Every time I travel to a different state, I sometimes search for the homeless community. I went to South Africa, search for the homeless community. No matter how dangerous my driver told me it was, the police said, "I will not go in that park with you, and you're not gonna be allowed to go in that park." I said, "I'll tell you what to do. Walk over there, hang out around that corner. I'm gonna go in that park and I'm gonna send a few people." And when there was over 500 in that park, and when they realized I was over there feeding people, they started running towards me. I heard him tell my driver. I jumped in the van and was like, "Take off," because if the police tells me it's dangerous, it's only dangerous because I would have ran out of food, and it would not have been a good look for me. So I go to different places. I look for the homeless community because I always want to be that friend
Wow,
that that lady
That,
talked
man.
about back in the day.
that's crazy.
Not only with Omega Psi Phi, if I see another Greek organization out there, I walk up to them and be like, "Can I help out?
Nice.
Can I participate?" So now there are a lot of Greek organizations here in Baltimore. They be like, "Oh, my favorite Q," or they call me, or they call me the Picture Man, because they all know me. And it's funny, like they all say my name, and I don't be remembering people names at all.
That's true.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's amazing how that story, how that came about. Because I remember seeing you do a lot of community. You had a lot of community engagement, community. You done a lot of community service, and I always thought it was because of our that whole push for social change through the doctoral program. I'm like, okay, and then you coupled in Omega Sci-Fi with it. I'm like, oh wow, that's why he's doing that. But to hear that it goes it's way even predates that, and it's just your own personal initiative. That's awesome. And what I like the most too is you're getting your students involved too, so they're not just finding benefit in jujitsu from the instructions that you receive, but now they're learning beyond that and learning about humanity itself, you taking care of others through your actions as well. So that's something
I,
to applaud.
I'm gonna tell you what got me is Capital reached out to me and was like, Lamont, we want a date where all of us can go out. And it was about 20 of us
Yeah.
in DC. And they were like, where are the homeless people in DC? It was about 20 of us from Tacoma. This was Christmas Eve. And then the next day, I was in Baltimore feeding again.
Mhm.
And then on the 26th, I felt bad because no one had coats. So on the 26th, 3 o'clock a.m., 3 a.m., I was downtown Baltimore passing out coats because I felt bad that they were so cold out there.
That's what's up,
And,
man.
and I cleaned out my closet that time. Not only was it my coats, but coats I bought. And then it was one homeless person I sponsored because he walked up to me and said, I know you. It was like you're a wildcat, meaning my high school. And then he turns around. I was like, so you went there? And I was like, what year you graduate? And he said, 90. And I was like, hold up. We graduated together. I
Mm.
said, I'll be here next weekend to pick you up. Went back the next weekend, put him in my vehicle, drove to Walmart and bought all sorts of personal hygiene items. And then went to a store probably close to where Hernan lived, Foreman Mills.
Hmm.
Loaded him up from head to toe, from shoes, socks, underwear, t-shirts, pants, jacket, a book bag, even a book bag because he had a book bag carrying it around, and he was completely dirty. And then my gym is next door to Foreman Mills, and I said, walk in my gym. I took him in my gym. Said, take take all your stuff. Go take a shower. Don't walk out the bathroom with anything you have on. Don't walk out. Throw it all away. Only walk out the bathroom with everything I bought you. He came out looking real clean. I took him to my house, cut his hair, trimmed his beard, made him look neat, and then took him out to a restaurant to eat. That night, my actual school was hosting an event at this place. So I said, I want to take you to this event. I took him there. I didn't know the guy. Everybody knew who he was. Like, long time no see. Nah, hey man, it's good to see you. Mind you, he looked clean. His sister didn't want to come visit him until I sent her a before and after picture. Then she decided to come to where we were 2 hours later after we left. And I said, I'm going to bring him back. And she was like, if you don't hurry up, I'm going to leave. Then when she saw her brother looking clean, then she was like, you know what? I'm going to stop acting like that. He looks good. Okay. So later on, I called him up. I was like, hey, man, I want to take you out with me to feed the homeless. He said, Lamont, I'm no longer homeless. No, I said, be it there because I'm feeding the homeless today. He said, I'm no longer homeless, thanks to you. He said, you gave me hope. So then he was no longer homeless. He went out, fed the homeless. One of the homeless people were like, what are you doing? He said, I'm out here feeding the homeless. Because the one thing he said to me, I would like to be in a position that you're in. I want to be able to feed the homeless as well. And he used to always talk about wanting to get his CDLs and drive tractor trailers. And then when that January, end of January, he contacted me and said, guess what? I'm moving to Tennessee. I have a job. I'm about to drive tractor trailers across the country. And then I was like happy about that. And then one day this priest came out of this church and was like, the only thing you're doing is enabling everyone. You're always feeding, and you see them that people are feeding. I say, well, I'm gonna give them food and they're gonna eat. He was like, but you're enabling. I was like, he said, they'll never get off the street if you keep on doing that. I said, in all due respect, this gentleman with me now was one of them 2 months ago. And that same guy got his job. He actually died 6 months after getting his job because he developed blood clots driving cross country because that's something he wanted to do. And he sat down too long. He didn't take many breaks, develop those blood clots. I don't know how his people knew me, but they contacted me. They called me up on Facebook Messenger just to inform me that he passed away.
Hmm.
because they knew that I made a difference in this guy's life, and it wasn't a family member; it was a friend. So he must have talked about me.
Nice.
So
That's good,
that's my story about the homeless people because I was like, now I understand being that friend.
man. Yeah. Anytime that you have get ready to do it again, I'd love to get involved and help
Yeah,
you out.
please let us know.
Yeah.
Veterans
Yeah, for
Day,
sure.
Veterans Day, Veterans Day,
That it. What day is that?
November the 11th.
November 11th. All right, I'm gonna put it on my calendar so we can go out there and help out. That'd be awesome.
I'm gonna come up with a time. It's usually
Okay.
11 or 3. And the reason why I have done 11 these past few times because I've done a brunch.
Nice.
Like this past brunch, I actually made I was out there scrambling eggs. I brought a frying pan out there, kerosene heater, set it up, scrambled eggs prior to going there. I never took them chicken nuggets in my life, so this time I had pans of chicken nuggets, and then I had French toast sticks, and I scrambled eggs. So I was scrambling in front, scrambling to order. I wasn't like scrambling eggs and putting them on a heater because if you have reheated eggs, if you know anything about reheated eggs, it's disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, that's
So
awesome,
they
man.
were getting fresh eggs. Before
So
that, I did chicken and waffle,
Oh wow.
and a lot of times I do pizza. And sometimes I will do pizza like pizza boli because I know personally that pizza boli don't use pork when they make pepperoni. When they put pepperoni, that I don't know what it is. It might be beef, but it's not pork. So I know that for a fact because pizza boli is owned by Muslims,
Muslims,
so they're
yeah.
not using pork. So I'll go out there and I'll feed them pepperoni pizza and cheese pizza. So the pepperoni would be for the meat lovers. The cheese would be for the vegetarians. Or then I get some like I don't eat pork, and I explain it's not pork. And then some of them still don't believe me, so they're like, "Nah, you're not gonna trick me on this one."
That's awesome, man. Put us down for that 11th November 11th date. I'd love to do that and even have my kids involved because I want them to see the other side of things. Unfortunately, we live too often we kind of just see one side, our immediate world, and we don't really get to experience what other people are doing or going through. So it'd be good to have them go through that as well and see what it is, what other people are like, and for you to appreciate also what you have. To kind of be thankful for what you have.
Send me your garage schedule because I want to come out one day.
All right, yeah, yeah, be cool. Yeah, for sure. We're definitely gonna do that. For sure, I'll definitely shoot you up.
And
Um,
one thing, it's funny. You know how I say I don't be remembering people name. Don't get mad at me, but I've never known Dinky name without him somebody saying it. I've never
yeah, his
known it.
name is Dinky.
And and the only reason why I say Dinky because I see it on the screen. But and you were signed up for the tournament here in Baltimore, right?
I am actually, yeah,
I mean
in
in
December.
Maryland, in Silver Spring. You were signed up, right?
Diego.
Uh,
I
the
think
the
you were
25th or
the
this past.
25th, but you didn't compete. You were
Yeah,
signed
because
up.
I don't think I ever even paid for it. I just
Right.
yeah.
So I said, Chico, he was part of the clean team. Chico was like, I can't think about who you talking about. I said, I can't remember his name.
He's got to show up to class, man.
Yeah, see
And
that.
no. Some people I'm gonna remember their names much, especially if you give me a hard roll. Not saying you don't, Dinky, but if you're too quiet, I don't really remember names, and I wait to
Definitely.
hear other people say your name. Cause I'm not gonna come up to you after 4 years, be like, "Hey, what's your name again?"
Yeah.
That's what's up, man.
Awesome, man.
So Lamont,
Yeah.
man, we're over the time, but it was a great talk, man. Especially to hear some of the things that you're doing outside of jiu-jitsu. I think that it inspires. I hope that inspires a lot others to kind of think about what you could do above and beyond just the mats, and to hear that you're also extending that to your students to be involved. That's an amazing thing, and
Thank you.
want to continue. To wish you all the success. We're around the corner, so for sure we'll definitely get up. But last 30 seconds, 1 minute, last few words. Where can they find you? Where can they find your school? Just any shout outs that you want to give.
So Gracie Randallstown is 3535 Brynbrook Drive, Randallstown, Maryland, 21133. I hope I didn't say that too many ones. 21133. Yeah, that's it. So
Good deal.
I
Any
tell
other?
people broken bones hurt worse than a loss, so don't be hesitant to tap.
Nice, nice, good deal, everybody. So yeah, definitely check out Dr. Lamont at Gracie Randallstown. And any social media that they can find you, follow you.
Gracie Randallstown on social media, which on IG as well as Facebook. But if you type in my name, Lamont Tyler, on IG, you will find my page.
That's what's up. All right, then. Thank you
Lamont,
so
man.
much.
Yeah, man. I want to thank you also, man. It was
You're welcome.
a great show, man. If you see, man, way over the hour, but man, I was just listening like attentively, man. I felt like I was listening to Morgan Freeman just doing a man. And man, it was, but no joke, man. Very inspirational. The things, more so, the things that you do for the community. I feel like that's something that we miss and that that we take for granted, right? The more we give, the more we get back. So, like, I really appreciate you sharing all of your stories, man. Everything that you mentioned from jujitsu to your personal life. For me, very beneficial. So I appreciate your time. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much, man.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much, Lamont,
And
man. And we'll see each other very
Thank you.
soon.
Morgan Freeman was never young, so okay.
he, but he stays the same for real, man. He stays the same.
All
Yeah,
right.
man.
But
All right,
yeah,
take care,
Thank
Lamont.
you for having me.
thank you, brother.
Thank you,
Thank
Thank
man.
you,
you.
Good
brother.
Have a
time.
good one.
Thank you, brother.
Take care, brother.
Us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Lamont Tyler, and we're well
All
over
right.
the hour, but I think it was well worth to hear his dedication and devotion to the community outside of jiu-jitsu. I think that's
Yeah.
something that I didn't expect to hear that, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I
But
was very.
Diego,
I thought it was just like here and there, man. But how deep he got into it, and like
Yeah.
again, man, it was very and being that we're part of the fraternity, we're part of our own organization. We've done certain things like this. It gives that fire of like you were saying, man, something else to bring, to use to help you with everything else that you're doing, man. So, man, that was awesome, bro. All of the
awesome,
stories were funny too.
awesome. Fernando, last 30 seconds, what you got, man, before we close this session out?
Dag, I really need to go to class, man. I'm like, yo, I've been there for like
Hell, man.
6 years and nobody
So-
knows my name and stuff like that. Now,
No.
granted, I am like one of those. I mean, you guys been in class with me. I really don't talk to nobody. I'm just, to
That's true.
myself, get in, get out. Maybe I got to do
You
a
gotta
better.
put a name tag right
Yeah,
here. My
My
seriously,
name
name.
is
yeah,
Fernando.
for real. I gotta put something on there. But no, I really appreciate getting to know Lamont over the past couple years. Seeing his generosity. Through his pictures and through the Capital Initiative, and then also to him being generous with giving us over an hour and a half of his time that he could be doing something else to talk to us and stuff like that. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I will be in his RG360 class in November, and if you're still watching, I'll talk more. I'll try to engage more often.
So when you roll with him next time, you got to put him in a bad spot and whisper your name in his ear so he doesn't.
The funny thing is, I have gotten him at bad spots before too, and I'm like, oh, I think I got him.
Oh, wait.
At the time,
He makes you think you got him in that.
exactly, yeah. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, what's going on? And then I'm like doing splits that I've never been able to do in my whole life. So yeah,
Just make sure you just whisper your name so he doesn't forget.
I know it's Fernando. Remember that.
That's
AKA
great.
Whatever. It is what it
Thank
is.
you. That's what's up. Diego,
Awesome,
last few
man.
words, man.
No, man. I mean that it was a long session, so we'll end there. But yeah, thank you guys for for having me again, and it was a fun episode. Looking forward to this week, and hopefully I get to visit you guys soon.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know it was a little longer than usual, but hopefully it was worth it. Again, like always, be sure to like and follow our Facebook page, our Instagram page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like, comment, and leave us a note. Let us know how we're doing and what you want to hear next. With that said, train hard, train smart this week. We'll see each other again next Sunday. Para siempre.
Sempre.